this.
I'm a selfish, and I can only think about myself. And why didn't they vote for Kamal in the election?
This.
During the trip, it felt like some people were too busy playing Oppression Olympics to fully grasp the experiences of Palestinians living in Palestine.
And this.
Literally could not see past your own fucking issues, your own fucking comfort, or whatever the fuck. I don't care how oppressed you are in this country. I'm sure people are gonna come over and say, yes, me, I'm saying this. I don't care how oppressed you are in this country. Nothing justifies genocide or arguing to not only support an administration that is doing a genocide, but give up a leverage that cost you nothing. It cost you nothing.
Are all the same message. And they have been the same message the entire time. And if you couldn't see how problematic these messages were when they were coming out, you need to reflect on that. And I suggest you reflect offline, because you're probably going to feel defensive, you're probably going to be mad, and because you could not recognize the issues in the first place, you're not going to be able to recognize your own anti-Blackness. So I'm telling you, shut up, reflect offline, have those big ass fucking feelings that are going to come out offline, and then maybe craft an apology for whatever the fuck you said back then when you couldn't recognize it, when you couldn't recognize the fucking problem, when it fucking mattered.
Hello guys, welcome back again to the channel. I know you're doing well. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Now for long, the Pakistanis and Black Americans have been sharing the same sip of cup of oppression, and I've always seen Black Americans supporting the Pakistanis and standing with them. They've had a good relationship back there until when the blacks went to Pakistan, and they were told that they're playing victim. I find this as a betrayal because, okay, I'm not trying to share some divisive ideas here, but I'm just being honest. Yeah, let us all be honest, because you can see that time when people from Pakistan faced oppression, they faced rough days there. The Black communities were always there. They were standing with them. And it's so funny that right now they've forgotten that, and they're trying to say that blacks keep on playing victim, yet they're not victimized. And I just don't know what came over them. I just don't know what's the problem. I don't know what's the matter between these two right now. I just want you to share your views in the comment section. Let's watch the videos first, and later on we can come and hang out, share our thoughts, and learn from each other, you know. Yeah, let's keep on sharing our views. You're presented to Rain, and welcome once again. If this is your first time, you subscribe, share our content, give us a like, we'll greatly appreciate. Let's rock in now that you've done so.
Fortunately landed on my FYP, and I had to put my phone down several times while watching it because of how inhumane everything that she was saying was. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to come back tomorrow when I'm more calm. But in the meantime, I want y'all to ask yourselves what you want Black people to do when we're faced with racism. Since you're the expert on anti-Blackness, tell us exactly what you want us to do when faced with racism. And I understand the nuances of going to a place that's occupied and experiencing racism. That is an extremely complicated place to be in. But the idea that Black people in the situation who are more privileged in that moment than people who are under occupation should just let the racism roll off their backs like water is a wild, inhumane thing to say. Considering that the Black people on your trip were having conversations amongst themselves, how were you involving yourself in those conversations about how they were dealing with the racism that they were facing that was not being directed towards you? Furthermore, another aspect of racism that people don't understand is the physical component. So when I was in Morocco, when I studied abroad there years ago, I got called the N-word every single day when I was walking to school. And I will say it actually didn't really bother me that much because in the moment, I knew that I had the privilege in the situation. I was like, at the end of this, I'm going to go back to the US, to my private university, whatever. So long as you don't physically attack me, whatever. But guess what? Somebody on our trip did get physically attacked. Despite having privilege over her attackers, she still got attacked because of their racism. Racism has multiple avenues of being harmful to people. Your unwillingness to understand this is so beyond. I don't even take this video. I don't know why it's still up. This video is causing so much damage to the Black and Palestinian solidarity we're trying to build and continue that has existed for so long, despite Black people being faced with anti-Blackness from the people that we are being allied with. I'm not sure what is wrong with some of you, genuinely.
I don't know what I was expecting from my trip to Palestine, but I certainly did not expect to walk away with racial tensions between myself and the Black people in our group. And that's really disappointing for me to admit because I was so excited to go on this trip with Black Americans because I was always under the impression that Black people will be our greatest allies because they understand more than anybody what it's like to live under occupation, what it's like to be oppressed and racially profiled. But during the trip, it felt like some people were too busy playing oppression Olympics to fully grasp the experiences of Palestinians living in Palestine. Some people came on the trip with a very limited understanding of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause, which is problematic in and of itself. But the most problematic thing was the fact that some people were applying a Western lens of racial dynamics to a place where it does not apply. I am not going to sit here and deny that anti-Blackness exists in every single part of the world. But the issue of race is much different in Palestine than in most other places in the world. In Palestine, Palestinians of all colors are undoubtedly the most oppressed people. In Palestine, a non-Palestinian Black person is more privileged than a Palestinian of any color. And an American, Black or white, is one of the most privileged people in Palestine, right beneath Israelis. Some people in the group were too busy victimizing themselves and taking out their anger on all the wrong people to sit with the reality that in modern day, there are some people that are more oppressed than them. One person in particular was incredibly problematic, especially considering she was one of the group leads who was hosting private conversations exclusively for the 7 Black people in the group, which under almost any other circumstances I would encourage. I encourage Black people to create safe spaces for themselves to discuss racial issues among themselves. But the issue is that the only comments I heard come out of this person's mouth about Palestine and Palestinians were negative, were about how racist we are, were about how slavery persisted until the 20th century in Palestine, which is such an uneducated take, by the way. It was not exclusive to Black people, and it was not done mostly by Palestinians. So I believe these conversations being hosted by a person who came to Palestine with biases against Palestinians were so dangerous to Palestinians and ultimately to Black Palestinian solidarity. The most ironic part about all of this is the fact that we sat and had dinner with Afro-Palestinians in Palestine. We sat and broke bread with the family who runs the Afro-Pali Center in Jerusalem. They are Black. They are visibly Black, and yet they are highly respected in the Palestinian community for the work that they do for Palestinians. I even talked to the chef at our hotel in the last couple of days who was a political prisoner. He had just gotten out of prison 2 months before we arrived in Palestine. And he told us that he sat side by side with an Afro-Palestinian, son of the couple who runs the Afro-Pali Center. He sat with him in prison, and he was shocked when I asked him about racism in Palestine because he was like, Those are my brothers. I don't care what color they are. During this trip, I sat with Palestinians and I told them, talk to me bluntly. I'm a Palestinian. I'm not going to judge our community. Talk to me about racism in Palestine. And every single one of them was like, what is there to say? Like, racism exists in every community, yes. But in Palestine, it's actually few and far between. Because the issue of race is so much more complicated in a place like Palestine. And I have been involved in Black activism for many years. And I know that when I am in Black spaces, it is not my place to call out issues within the Black community, especially when those people are being slaughtered. When I am in Black spaces, I am there to observe, to learn, to be an ally, not to call out Black people. By the way, these same people who sat there and talked all this shit about how racist Palestinians are did not hesitate to pose in front of a ginormous George Floyd mural painted by a Palestinian artist. They posed with that artist in front of the mural. And I bet they wouldn't dare look that artist in the face and say that he's racist. By the way, go support that artist. He's Banksy.2 on Instagram. He's an incredible person, incredible artist who I'm still in communication with. He is struggling right now. His daughter is in the hospital, so please reach out and try to help in any way that you can. But I refused to pose in that picture with the rest of the group because literally an hour before that, they were making fun of Palestinians. We passed a mural that was supposed to be, I believe, of Nelson Mandela, but it wasn't the greatest art. And so it kind of looked like George Floyd, and they couldn't tell who it was. And they literally said, I'm so sick of these people. And yet they won't hesitate to pose in front of a George Floyd mural for a social media photo op. Even when we were about to walk into a masjid, there were beggars outside the masjid who asked some people for money. And she made a comment about how, oh, notice how they're not asking the Black people for money because they think all Black people are poor. And I said, you don't know that. Those same people didn't ask me, a Palestinian American, for money. They're not assuming I'm poor. In fact, when they know you're American, you're immediately up here to them. They immediately assume you have money and that you're privileged in ways that they'll never experience. The reason that they didn't ask some people for money had nothing to do with the fact that those people are Black. They simply just approached a few people out of the entire group asking for money. I could ramble about this for hours because it was one of the most frustrating things of my life to watch people come from America to a place like Palestine and act like they're more oppressed than people literally living under occupation. And it's so ironic because the entire time I'm trying to find parallels between the lives of Palestinians, between the racial profiling that I experienced as a Palestinian and the experiences of Black people in America. I thought that this would be an opportunity for us to come together and understand each other better, not to create more division. This is why some people are so dangerous to the movement, not only to the pro-Palestinian movement, but also to Black activism. Because if I was somebody else, if I haven't already done so much work for the Black community, if I didn't already have a deep understanding of racial dynamics, this entire experience might have pushed me away from the Black community. But I know that these rotten tomatoes in the community do not represent the Black community as a whole. One of the most ironic parts about all of this is that before making this video, I was sitting in a cafe in Amman, journaling my thoughts about this topic, and I got interrupted by a waiter at the restaurant who asked me where I'm from, and we started chatting, and it turns out he is Jamaican and Palestinian. But ultimately, I think if you have internal biases against Palestinians, you should not be going to Palestine. And if you don't want to acknowledge the experiences of Palestinians in their entirety, then to be honest, we don't need you as an ally. Seeing what Palestinians are going through only makes you think, yeah, no, we have it worse. When you're an American, you are not a true ally. And I will be talking more about the issue of people taking trips to Palestine with a limited understanding of Palestinians and Palestinian history. Because there were so many other issues with some of the people who went on this trip for all the wrong reasons. I don't know what I
So there's a girl that made a horrible take concerning black people that were experiencing anti-blackness when they went to help Palestinians in Gaza. And she said she expected for these black people to be allies to the Palestinians. And they were not allies, I guess, when they went to help. Guess that didn't matter to her. No, those black people that went to help the Palestinians, that basically got on planes and flew over to help the Palestinians, they're not allies. They didn't show their allyship then. She basically said that they proved that they weren't allies because they started complaining about the anti-blackness that they were experiencing at the hands of the Palestinians, again, that they went to help, and said that those black people were engaging in oppression Olympics. Now, it's a stupid take. It really is a not well thought out take. It really is a not well thought out take, but it exposes a couple of things about her. One, she doesn't actually value the opinions of black people, because when these black people started pointing out the anti-blackness that they were experiencing, she again said that they were engaging in oppression Olympics and they should ignore the anti-blackness that they were experiencing from Palestinians because it's different in Palestine. And how dare you, darky, point out the anti-blackness that you're experiencing at the hands of the Palestinians when they are experiencing so much strife right now. That's the point, ma'am. That's what they were pointing out. How do they still have time for anti-blackness when they are literally experiencing an ongoing ethnic cleansing campaign? That's the point that those black people were pointing out to you, that even in all of the stuff that your people are going through, they still have time for anti-blackness. And you try to make the argument that it resonates different in Palestine. It doesn't. Simply because there are black Palestinians doesn't mean that anti-blackness isn't the same. It's on the same accord all across all non-black communities. Every single black person knows that when they go into non-black communities, it is most likely that we will experience some form of anti-blackness. It is the same. It resonates on the same accord across all non-black communities. The disrespect that those black people were experiencing from Palestinians when they were going to help you, they were going to help Palestinians. It's the same disrespect that black people experienced at the hands of Ukrainians that they were going to help. It resonates the same. There is no difference. It has the same root, white supremacy. And it's not lost on me that you saw these black people fly over there to help, do everything in their power to ensure that they were on the front lines to help Palestinians. And that wasn't good enough for you to see them as allies, to respect what they were saying to you, to understand that in all of the stuff that's happening, why do you still have time for anti-blackness? Which just shows us that you also are anti-black and you don't respect the opinions, the words, or the lived experiences of black people. And you only weaponize our struggle to benefit yourselves. I'm going to tell all non-black communities this. Be so fucking for real with this shit. Be so fucking for real. If you want black people to care about you, then this is a basic requirement. A basic requirement. It is non-negotiable. If you want black people to care about you, your people, your causes, then you must respect us. And when you disrespect us, we are always going to point it out. Period. End of discussion. The fucking nerve.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back again. And we got to be clear here. We got to be keen on this. And the framing of oppression Olympics is not only destructive but distraction. A tool that upholds white supremacy and imperialism. By dividing those, it harms mostly. This is what is happening to blacks and the Palestinians, because black Americans and Palestinians have both been subjected to brutal systems of control, slavery, colonialism, apartheid, state violence, and systemic dehumanization. So why would we ever turn on each other instead of recognizing our shared struggle and fighting together? Because unity isn't just idealistic, it's strategic. As I always say, that together we get stronger and stronger, and divided we get weakened. And I think this is the tool that enemy gets to use most of the time this is the tool that he uses against the same people that are oppressed. There's a long documented history of black solidarity with Palestinians. During the height of civil rights movement, groups like the SNCCC and the Nation of Islam openly supported Palestinian liberation. Kwame Ture connected the black liberation struggle directly to anti-imperialist movements around the world, including in Palestine. So even if you also look at in the 1970s, the SNCCC ever published materials condemning Zionism as a form of settler colonialism, long before that became a common stance in the leftist circles. So this solidarity came at a time when such views were considered political suicide, but black activists stood tall anyway. They supported them, seeing the parallels between Jim Crow and Israeli apartheid. So if you go back to fast forward to 2020, during the George Floyd uprisings, and Palestinians once again stood up for black lives. Many in the West Bank and Gaza posted messages of support and even shared protest tactics for resisting tear gas, something they've sadly become experts in. Yeah, I say sadly because it's not a very good thing to experience. Yeah. So that moment was a beautiful and powerful, and I really loved it. I really loved the solidarity. I really loved the unity between the two. Of course, there was unity because there was unity between the two, but unity can't just be performative or symbolic. It needs to be mutual. It needs to be mutual, consistent, and honest. So you guys need to get back together, unite, and fight for the same cause and fight the enemy instead of fighting against each other. Because yes, it is real anti-blackness exists in Arab communities, including among some Palestinians. From media portrayals to internal societal hierarchies, blackness is often marginalized, overlooked, or outright disrespected. So that's not the fault of every Palestinian, just like systemic racism isn't the fault of every white American. But it is a problem, and sweeping it under the rug undermines any real coalition. Let us all be real to ourselves. You need to unite, guys. You cannot do it alone. You need each other. So when black stands for you, you also need to do the same way. Don't try to say that blacks try to play victim most of the time. You know, solidarity means reciprocity. Yeah, it means reciprocity. It means that black people should not have to beg to be seen, respected, or valued within movements they've supported for decades, like this one for Palestinians. It means that Palestinian liberation must include the liberation of black Palestinians, African migrants, and Afro-Arabs. It means we fight all oppressions, including the ones in our communities. And if the enemy is oppression, of course it is. The enemy is oppression. Then let's be honest about how it manifests everywhere. Let's face it. Let's handle it together. And so, as I began by saying, you need to be together more than ever. Yeah, these fights should not be mentioned among yourselves. The oppressed must not be turned against each other. When we fight over whose suffering is greater, we lose sight of the larger structures that cause that suffering. So the real enemy isn't black people, it isn't Palestinians, it's the white supremacy, militarism, capitalism, and colonialism. And you need to know that our liberation is tied. So instead of fighting over pain, let's fight the system that profits from it. Yeah, I say that because I believe I'm a black. I know you need to be together. Black Americans, you need to be together with, you need to stand together with Palestinians. Don't let this come between you. Yeah, let you turn that historical solidarity into a living one, breathing force rooted in respect and truth. I've been your presenter to Rain, and I'm really humbled to have you here in this space. If this was your first time, please consider supporting us by simply subscribing, give us a like, share our content. We'll greatly appreciate. As I always say, together we get stronger and stronger, and divided we get weakened. So keep on supporting each black fella. I'm hoping to see you in the next video. Goodbye.